We continue now at the top of Daf Kufyud Zayin Amud Aleph and Meseches Zevachim. This is Zevachim Daf 117a. The Brisa said that in the times of Mishkan Shiloh there were just two machanos and not three machanos. In general, there are three machanos. There's the Machane Shechina, the Machane Leviah, and the Machane Yisrael. And again, the Brisa is saying that at Mishkan Shiloh there were just two. And Abaye says it has to be that there was a Machane Leviah during Mishkan Shiloh, because if not, if there was no Machane Leviah, then Nimtzu Zovin Utmei Mesim Mishtalchin Chutz LaMachane Achas. It would come out that Zovin and Tmei Mesim would all be sent out of one Machane. VaHaTorah Amr, but the Torah says V'lo Yatam was Machaneim. It says it in plural, that they should not be Matame their Machanos. Tein Machane Lazeh, Machane Lazeh. There's a camp for this one and a camp for that one. And Rashi explains Nimtzu Zovin Utmei Mesim Mishtalchin Chutz LaMachane Shechina Levad. It would come out if there was no Machane Leviah. So then Zovin and Tmei Mesim, they would only be sent out of the Machane Shechina. To Hashneim Mutar b'Machane Yisrael, because they're both permitted in Machane Yisrael. Kinamrin b'Psachim b'Perek Eladvarim. That's in Meseches Psachim. It says in the pasuk again, Machanehem Shnei Machanos Mashma. That sounds like two Machanos. Achas l'chol Zav, Achas l'chol Tamei Nefesh. And the idea is that one is for the Zav, one's for the Tamei Nefesh. Elavadei havoy Machane Leviah. Rather, it must be there was a Machane Leviah. Umishtalchin Tmei Mesim mimachane Shechina umutarn b'Machane Leviah. And so those who are Tamei Meis, they are sent out of the Machane Shechina, but they're allowed to be in the Machane Leviah. The Zavin and Balei Kiryon, and when it comes to Zavin and Balei Kiryon, they're mishtalchin chutz l'Machane Leviah. They're sent out of the Machane Leviah, but there must be a Machane Leviah. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rava said to him, he said to Abaya, Elamai, but what are you going to say? Machane Yisrael o Havoy, that there's no Machane Yisrael? Then you're going to run into the same problem. Nimtzu Zavin and Mitzoron mishtalchin l'makom echad. It's going to come out that Zavin and Mitzoron are all sent to one place. VaHaTorah Amr, but the Torah says, Bodod Yeshev, he has to be alone. Shelo Yeshev Tamei Acharimo, that nobody else who's Tamei should be together with him. And so the Gemara says, Ela liolam kulu telasa have. Rather, you have to say that at the time of Mishkan Shiloh, all three machanos were there. Umay lo hayu, and what does it mean? Lo hayu ela shtei machanos. What does it mean that there are only two machanos? That is leklita. That's referring to klita. That's referring to the protection for somebody who kills by mistake. So the Machane Leviah normally protects, but that was not true in Mishkan Shiloh. And Rashi explains, Elamai, but what are you going to say instead? Machane Yisrael lo havoy, that there was no Machane Yisrael in Mishkan Shiloh. Umishayotza chutz l'Machane Leviah, and then you would be saying that when somebody leaves the Machane Leviah, shuv ein sham keva machane, there is no Machane after that. V'areu kesada bi'alma, it's like being sent down into the field. Umutarn mitzorain leishev sham, and then if there is no Machane Yisrael, so essentially mitzoraim would just be sent out of Machane Leviah. The mitzoraim would be able to stay there. Hatzrichen l'shtalech mi Machane Yisrael. In general, mitzoraim need to be sent out of Machane Yisrael. V'yashvu achshav im hazavin, but right now they're going to end up being together with the Zavin. Im kei nimtzu Zavin and mitzoraim chutz l'Machane Leviah belvad. It's going to come out that Zavin and mitzoraim are really only being sent out of Machane Leviah. And so the Gemara instead said, Ela kulu have, rather Mishkan Shiloh, it had all the machanos. Udikotani lo hayu ela shtei machanos. When it said in the Brisa there are only two machanos, linyan klitahu, that's in terms of protection in the Yori Miklot, the nistalka Torahs Machane Leviah miliklot es ahargem b'shogeg. That in Mishkan Shiloh, the Machane Leviah normally would protect those who killed by mistake, but that was not true in Mishkan Shiloh. The Machane Leviah did not protect those who killed by mistake. And the Gemara continues, Mechlal, this implies the Midbar, that in the times of the Midbar, Havoy Kolta Machane Leviah, that Machane Leviah actually would protect those who killed by mistake. And the Gemara says, yes, that is true. V'atanya, as we learned in the Brisa, V'samti l'cha makom, it says, I'm going to make a place for you. And what does that mean? B'chayecha, it's going to be in your lifetime. And makom, when it says a place, mekomcha, it's going to be your place. Asher yonos shama, that he's going to flee over there. Melamid shemegalin b'midbar, that teaches that again they would go into exile in the Midbar. And lahechon golin, and where would they go to exile to? L'machane Leviah, they would go to Machane Leviah. Mikan Amru, from here they say Ben Levi Shaharag, that if you have a Ben Levi who kills Gola miplach leplach, he has to be exiled from one district to another district. However, Vim Gola lepalcho, but if he is exiled to his own district, so Polcho Kolto, so his district is able to protect him. Ma'ikra, what pasuk indicates this? Amar Rav Acha Breder Ravika says, Ki v'ir mikloto yeshev, it says he's in his ir miklot, ir shekaltaso kvar, means the city that's already protecting him. And Rashi explains, "V'samti l'cha makom b'chayecha." I'm going to make for you a place in your lifetime that's in Moshe Rabbeinu's lifetime. Ramaz lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hinting to Moshe b'Matan Torah, during Matan Torah, sheyizke l'mitzvah zu, that he is going to merit this mitzvah. K'dichsev az yavdil Moshe shalosh arim b'sof arboim shana. It says Moshe is going to separate 3 cities at the end of the 40 years, and l'cha makom, a place for you. Ha-makom shalcha, it's going to be your place. Dehainu Machane Levia, that refers to Machane Levia. Afhu Niklat, that also will protect the Rotzchim. And again, the idea is even during Moshe Rabbeinu's lifetime, even in the times of the Midbar, the Machane Levia protected. And Mikan Amru, from here they say, Ben Levi shayadar ba'ari miklat. Let's say you have a Ben Levi who lives in one of the Ari Miklat, those were the cities of the Levium. Shekal arboim u'shmona ayaros shel Levium, Ari Miklat hayu, all 48 cities that belong to the Levium, they were Ari Miklat. Kidamrinan b'Meseches Makos, like we say Meseches Makos. Vim harag b'shogeg, if a person killed by mistake, gola le'echad me'ari Chaverav, he would be exiled to one of the cities of his friends. The Darish Beinami Hachi v'Samti l'Chamakom Af HaLeviim Golim, even the Levium, they have to be exiled. V'im Gola b'Polcho Atzmo, and let's say it's within his own city, within his own district that he's exiled. Kagon Mishchuna l'Shchuna, let's say he goes from one neighborhood to another neighborhood, so Polcho Kolto, then his city will protect him. Dumya, the Midbar, similar to the Midbar, Shahaya Machane Levia Koletis, the Machane Levia in the Midbar protected, and also his own ear Miklat will protect him. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, Bo Gilgal, when they came to Gilgal, when the Mishkan was in Gilgal, then bamos were permitted, private altars were permitted. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabban, and the sages taught in the Brisa, Kol nidor v'nidav hayakarif bebama, any carbon which is donated can be brought in a private bama, but she'ein nidor v'nidav ein karif bebama. If it's not nidor v'nidav, if it's not a donated carbon, meaning if it's an obligatory carbon, then it cannot be brought on a bama. And furthermore, mincha unezirus craven bebama, carbon mincha and Nazirus, they can be offered on the Bama. Divrei Rabbi Meir, these are the words of Rabbi Meir, those are also in the category of donated karbonos. Rashi explains, Kol hanidor v'hanidav kare b'bama ketana can be brought again on a bama ketana, that's an individual's private bama. The ilu b'bama gedola, Rashi says, when it comes to a bama gedola, the bama gedola was again in Gilgal, that bama was considered, that mizbeach was considered a bama gedola. When it comes to bama gedola, al karchach karvu chovas tzibor, they had to bring some obligations, because they would certainly bring the communal obligations. The chsiv, as it's written by Yasos HaPesach by Gilgal, it says they made the carbon Pesach in Gilgal. Ella b'ketana, rather here we're talking about again bama ketana. V'amar dekarvi nedarim u'nedavos v'lo chovos, and what we're saying over here is that on private bamos, nedarim and nedavos can be offered, but not obligatory karbanos. Over Torah's Kohanim tani la behedyo Rabbi Meir, in Torah's Kohanim it says this explicitly according to Rabbi Meir, and also menachos and naziros, carbon mincha, and anything offered by nazir, nidor v'nidavu, that's considered a donation, v'karvi, and that is able to be brought on private bamos. Again, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. And the Brisa continues, V'chachamim omrim, and the Chachamim say, Lo karvu yachid, ela olos u'shlamim bilvad. Individuals would only bring olos and shlamim. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol shat tzibur v'ayachid makriven bi'ol moed shebemidbar. Anything that the community and the individual would bring in the ol moed in the midbar, makriven bi'ol moed shebegilgal, that would be brought in the ol moed in Gilgal. Ma bein ol moed shebemidbar levein ol moed shebegilgal. What's the difference between the ol moed in the midbar and the ol moed in Gilgal? Ol moed shebemidbar lo hayu bamos mutaros, in the ol moed in the midbar bamos, private altars were not permitted. Ol moed shebegilgal, but when the ol moed was in Gilgal, hayu habamos mutaros, then the bamos were permitted. And Rabbi Yehuda concludes, Uvamaso shebarosh gago, a person who has a private altar on the top of his roof, lo hayamakriv oleh ella ola ushlamim, he would only offer ola and shlamim. V'chachamim omrim, and the chachamim say, kol shat tzibur makriven bo ol moed shebemidbar, anything the community would offer in the ol moed in the midbar, makriven bo ol moed shebegilgal, they would offer in the ol moed in Gilgal. V'kan, and here, lo karvu yachid ella ola ushlamim bilvad, the individual would only bring ola and shlamim. Rabbi Shimon says, even the community would only offer psachim. And Rashi explains, Kol shei nidor v'nidav ein karev b'bama, anything that's not donated is not offered on a bama. This also, again, is the opinion of Rabbi Meir, and we're talking here about bama katana. If it's not donated, it's not offered on a bama katana, on a private individual's bama. K'di yolef tamei l'kaimei, his reason will be learned later on, she'ein yochid makriv chova b'shas heter habamos, an individual does not bring any obligatory karbanos at the time that bamos are permitted, v'yafilu b'gedola, and that's true even by a bama gedola, v'tzibor b'katana lo mekar, Karvi, and when it comes to the community, they don't offer anything on a katana, on a bama katana. Ishtakach, so it comes out, the ein chovos, kraven bekatana, that no obligatory karbonos are going to be brought on a katana, on a small bama. Again, the idea over here is, according to Rabbi Meir, that a bama katana, that is only going to be for voluntary karbonos, because it's only used by yechidim, only used by individuals, and at the time that bamos are permitted, so individuals only bring karbonos that are donated, and not obligatory karbonos. And again, according to Rabbi Meir, when it comes to the bama gedola, so there you're going to have some obligatory karbonos, but that's only if they are communal. And Rashi continues, Vikashal Rabbi Meir. Now, if you have the following difficulty, you can ask on Rabbi Meir, in Cain, if so, Yachid lo asa pischo ba Gilgal, it's going to come out that an individual is not going to be able to bring carbon Pesach in Gilgal, because that's an individual obligation. Ukruksiv vayasvas ha-Pesach, and the pasuk says vayasvas ha-Pesach, which Rashi just quoted above, and the answer to that is Pesach carbon sibor kari lei. Pesach is actually, even though each individual brings a carbon Pesach, but that's really called a carbon sibor because everyone is bringing it. The asi bechnufya, it was all brought together. The Meseches Yuma, that's mentioned in Meseches Yuma. V'hachanami b'd Rabbi Shimon katani af tzibor lo hikruvu el peschayim. Also in Rabbi Shimon it says that tzibor only brings the psachim. Alma carbon sibor kari lei. You see in Rabbi Shimon also that that's called a carbon sibor lekamon yolif taima dekulu. And later on the Gemara will learn out the reasoning of all the various tanoim. And the next opinion in the Bryce is the opinion of the Chachamim. The Chachamim said that on the Bama Katana, only Olos and Shlamim are offered. Lo Kervi, again, only Olos and Shlamim. Lafuke Menachos and Nazirus, that comes to exclude Karban Mincha and the offerings of a Nazir. The Lo Karvi Bama Katana, they're not offered on the Bama Katana. Again, Rabbi Meir said that Menachos and Nazirus, that is included as voluntary, as donated offerings, and so therefore the individual does bring it on the Bama Katana. The Chachamim disagree. They say only Olos and Shlamim. And then came the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, Kol shat tzibur v'hayachin makriven be'ol moed shebemidbar, anything that the community or the individual offered in the ol moed in the midbar, that was also offered in the ol moed in Gilgal, dahainu kol ha-karbonos kul, and that refers essentially to all karbonos. Nedarim, unedavos, v'chovos, makriven be'ol moed shebegilgal, tehi bama gedola. The ol moed in Gilgal was bama gedola, and therefore everything could be brought, whether it was nedarim, nedavos, whether it was obligatory karbonos. And Rashi explains, v'hashta poligad Rabbi Meir Rabbi Yehuda here is arguing on Rabbi Meir and the Rabbanan. To me, the Katani kol shat tzibur, from the fact that it says anything that the community brings, lashmeinon de'ein chiluk be'ol moed shebemidbar le'ol moed shebegilgal. Essentially, Rabbi Yehuda is saying there's no difference between the ol moed in the midbar and the ol moed in Gilgal. Mechlal deshaminu Rabbi Meir v'Rabbanan de'amri yesh chiluk. That implies that according to Rabbi Meir and the Rabbanan, there is a difference between the ol moed in the midbar and the ol moed in Gilgal. Umachi, look on what is the difference. Shein yachin makrav bo chovos, that again an individual, according to Rabbi Meir and the Rabbanan, an individual does not bring obligatory karbonos in Gilgal. V'tamayu nami shamina lekamon. Their reason is going to be learned later on. The afilu b'bama gedola lo karvi liyachid elo nedarim unedavos. That even on bama gedola, when it comes to an individual, he's only going to bring nedarim and nedavos. Ul Rabbi Meir menachos and naziros bechlal. And again, according to Rabbi Meir, menachos and naziros are included as nedarim and nedavos. And Rabbi Yehuda continues, Bamos mutaros, again during the time of Gilgal, then Bamos were mutter, Bamos yachid, again that's private altars, Uvamaso shabarosh hagag, and his bama that's on the top of his roof, a person's private altar, he Bamas yachid, that is the Bamas yachid, that's only going to be allowed to have Ela Ola ushlamim, only Ola and Shlamim, Velo menachos and naziris, not Karban Mincha, and not the offerings of a Nazir. And then the Brisa brought the opinion of the Chachamim that v'kan, here and here, meaning Bamas Sibor u Bamas Yachid, when it comes to both communal and individual Bamos, lo karvu behen liyachid ela olos u'shlamim, for an individual, only olos and shlamim would be brought. And Rashi notes, so the Kamon Parach, the Gemara later will ask, Hainu Tanakama, this is exactly the same as the Tanakama. To Chachamim dele'el nami hachi, that's the exact same statement the Chachamim just said above, again that the Chachamim said only olos and shlamim. And then we have the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rashi explains, Rabbi Shimon Polagakulu. Rabbi Shimon argues on everyone. Tekulu svirlu dein chiluk letzibur bein midbar legilgal bebama gedola. Everybody agrees there's no difference for the community between the Mishkan and the midbar and when it was in Gilgal by Bama Gedola. For Rabbi Shimon Omer, but Rabbi Shimon says af tzibur atzmam lo hikrivu begedola yoser miyachid bekatana. Even the community themselves, they did not bring more on the gedola more than the individual brought on the katana. They brought el psachim, meaning they only brought psachim avolo par helim davar usire avodas kochav Psachim lo karvulem begilgul. The Par Helam Dover and the Sirei Avodas Kochavim, according to Rabbi Shimon, those were not brought in Gilgul. And the idea, according to Rabbi Shimon, is that only Psachim and that which will be mentioned on the next Amud, only those are brought on Bama Gedola, different than Bama Katana, but otherwise Bama Gedola and Bama Katana are the same, according to Rabbi Shimon, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis.